head. Okay, hey everybody, Meredith Oliver here, and welcome to the August 4th edition of Virtual Builder Town Hall, the only meeting that you will attend this week that will be fun and exciting, and there will be no slides. I don't know about you, but we get pretty zoomed out. I think last week I did carry 17 Zooms.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Matt, Dave, you probably did similar numbers.
Oh.
Yeah, every single meeting is a Zoom meeting.
Every one of them. And it gets kind of exhausting. So our goal is to do three things. We are going to educate you today on the latest and the greatest and what's happening. But we also are going to entertain you today and have some fun with just all things that are happening. And we want to empower you today and leave you feeling like you got this and you are going to go get them and slam, because even the most motivated salespeople in the world at times can feel just burned out, tired, worn out, beat down. We all feel it. So we're here. We got you. And we're glad that you're here. Okay, so if you look down in your Zoom toolbar, you will see a chat bubble. If you click that, it will open up the chat. Most of you, I think, are very familiar with the chat box. One of the things I'm most proud of about this event is how active our chat always is. I attend many of these webinars as guest speakers or panelists or whatever, and the chat's like dead. So I'm counting on you guys to chat it up. We want to hear from you. There's too many of you to unmute you, so the chat's really our only way to feel connected to you, like we're not just talking to ourselves. You'll also see a Q&A button. You are welcome to put your questions there. You can put them in the chat. We're checking all of the above constantly, and one of us will answer you at our first opportunity.
Oh.
All right, what else? Is that it? Is that all our instructions? Hey, Noemi, how are you?
We got lots of peeps.
We do have lots of peeps today. Noemi's had a tough few days, and I'm impressed that you're here today, and I am glad that you're here. And we will definitely leave you feeling empowered today. I'm just really glad that you're here. Okay, so what's up, Town Hall family? Yeah, the Virtual Builder Town Hall is designed to create a sense of community and family within our industry. So we consider you that way, and we are glad you are here. In that light, we want you to participate in our Facebook group. So please, as long as you aren't trying to sell us a home or a service, please post in the Facebook group. If you have a question, if you want to do a poll, if you want to post an article, you're welcome to do all of those things. We just don't promote anything to each other, but besides that, we want to hear from you and stay connected with you, so please do that. If you don't know me, I'm Meredith Oliver of Meredith Communications. We do digital marketing for home builders, specializing in website design, Google ad management, social media ad management, online sales counselor, consulting and coaching, do lots of that. So we're here if you need us. And of course, our awesome panelists, I'm sure, will tell you about their backgrounds and what they do and how they can help as well. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Matt's going to share some updated traffic numbers with you as well. But as we always do, I want to open up today with showing you the latest and greatest numbers. So if I look at the month of July over the month of June, so July 2020, builder website traffic over June, I'm looking at about 60 builder websites across 40 markets in the United States. So not a bad sample size. I want you to see what May, June, and then July looked like. Look at this. And we thought January and February was good. And then the bottom fell out because, I don't know, we just decided to have a worldwide pandemic. But then we started gaining ground. And who knew in mid-March that a worldwide pandemic would spawn a housing demand of epic proportions? but it has. Matt's going to explain to you some of those reasons why in just a few minutes. If you look year over year, look at these numbers year over year. So the red line here is 2019, which BTW, I didn't find horrible, right? So here was 2019 July. Here's 2020 July. Dude, that's crazy good. So I think one of the reasons we've got, there were times here early in the crisis, we had hundreds of people on these calls every week. I think we have fewer people because I think you're really busy, which I get and I'm happy for. We're all really busy. That's awesome. But I will tell you that in the last 2 weeks, towards the end of July and into August, as the panic over what to do about back to school became a very real thing and hotspots started emerging, I'm seeing it slow up a touch. So I'd love you to get into chat right now, and I would love you, what are you seeing? Let's do it this way. Would you consider your traffic up, stable, or down? So let's look, everybody get in the chat. Let's see what you've got here. I'll stop sharing my screen. Okay, we've got an up vote from Deborah. Yay. All right, up, way up, Linda Dickert in my homes. Go get them, girl. Okay, slow down in last 14 days in Oklahoma, Mindy. Yep. Cindy saying stable. Up, 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 up. Yeah. I mean, that is basically what we're seeing. Okay. So I'm excited about that. I'm thrilled. It's wonderful. It's keeping us all very busy, but what? Well, I mean, we don't know, right? And we don't want to think negatively, and we don't want to sow any seeds of fear or anything, but at the same time, this year is a big question mark. Don't you think, guys?
Yeah.
There's a lot of buts hanging out there.
Right?
Well said.
Well said. Our friend Roland Narnsey, who's a sales trainer, always has a line about, I like big butts.
Yeah.
And he's not being rude or ugly to women. He's talking about objections that come in the form of, but, and it always makes me laugh when I hear that line. But it is true. I mean, we don't know where the virus is going. We don't know where the national election is going. There's a lot of unknowns. So the focus that I've been taking with our home builder clients, I know my colleagues have been taking as well, is one of, we've got to convert every single lead. We got to chase them all down. We cannot get complacent. We have got to really be focused. Some of you may not be experiencing the avalanche that we're seeing in chat of up, 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 up. And if you aren't, you need to talk to one of us about that, because that would be not on trend, to be honest. So if that's happening, let's have a sidebar on that and let one of us help you. But otherwise, most of you, it should be considerably better than it was a month ago, 6 months ago, even a year ago. So then what do we do? Like, why are we here? Why are we even spending time together today? What's the point? The point is we can't get complacent. I am a new Peloton rider.
Yay!
Yeah, right? I don't know. Actually, I don't know if I'm writing it or it's writing me currently.
It's controlling you. I know that, Meredith. You can't get away from it. You're always thinking about it.
I am.
I know.
I'm also always feeling it, because it's really painful at first. I'm terrible at it. For those of you that look at me that when I do these things and you think, damn, she's really good at that. Well, there's plenty of things I'm not good at, and athletic things are the main category of them. And so I'm not very good at it, but I'm doing it. And if you've ever started a new workout routine, doesn't have to be a Peloton, you know how hard a climb it is at first to do it, how difficult it is. And at one point I was writing it this week in a lot of pain, and the only word that could come to my mind, you guys, was friction. And if you've done any kind of indoor cycling, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, Lord, lady.
I know. Yeah, right? And so then I got to thinking about that being both good and bad. So I'm going to share my screen. I want to show you guys this email that I got from Zillow. So about the time I'm riding this Peloton, already thinking about friction, I get this email from Zillow. Subject line, new in Durham. That's where I live. I'm on the border of Durham, North Carolina, and Raleigh, right on the border. A $310,000, $900,000 home we think you'll love. I'm already in love with this subject line, and I'm going to be stealing it and giving it to all my OSC clients, Dave Betcher, because I'm loving this subject line. So then it's showing me a home. And then look at this, safely tour on your own. When you click through, and let me change my screen share to the browser here, right here. Here I am looking at this old, ugly, used home. We don't even like these homes, do we? No, we're in home building. We like new construction. And here it is, and here's all the photos. And oh, you can get pre-qualified right here. You could take a self-tour right here. You could contact an agent. You could navigate to the home. You could find out the travel times. You could see a virtual tour, a ton of photographs, blah, blah, blah. And what came to my mind, literally, as I saw this was two words: no friction. So today we're going to talk about the concept of friction and how when it's between you and your home buyers, it's not so good. It's negative, because what friction means is you're hard to work with. It means there are pain points in the process of researching your homes, buying your homes, building your homes that make me have a negative experience, that make me want to not do it. But then as an individual, there are things like, I don't know, learning to ride a Peloton, where friction's actually pretty darn good for you. So we'll talk about that at the end. So make sure you stay around at the end. But my colleagues and I today are going to be focused on this idea of friction in the process. All right, so if we think about this, you guys, the home buying process. Matt, I know this is a perfect question for you. Is the home buying process a straight line? Or does the home buying process look like...
It's a bit of a pinball machine, right? Like it's
right? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all over the place. So if you guys were to take, and in my notes, my very advanced notes for today's class, do you see this? Here's our home buying process, everyone. Okay. So our home buying process looks like this, but there are still, Matt, right? There are stops along the process, right, Kerry? Where people are interacting with you, your salespeople, your website, your email, your social media, right? They're interacting, and at those points of interaction, is there friction or not? This is the issue. Because what I want you to see is we get so focused on competing with our other builders, the neighborhood down the street, and that is not who you're only competing against, right, Dave? You're competing against this old, ugly resale home that I got email from Zillow. Yes?
And the other component you're competing against is complacency and doing nothing as well, Meredith. Yes. And that's what we don't want to see. So we're not just up against other builders and resale homes, but we're certainly up against complacency and sitting back, which we can't do. And there's that real lack of urgency sometimes that we don't necessarily consider.
Right.
Yes.
Urgency. Yes.
Urgency.
Ambivalence, Dave, to your complacency, ambivalence that, you know, everyone's just, I can't do that. I can't go there. I can't do this. That it's like, well, I'm done trying. So you're just ambivalent.
And just because the home buying process looks like this squiggly line of intersecting all this back to social, back to your website, back to Zillow, back to the model home, all this craziness, I still want you to understand what our job is. Our job is to be in the timeline acceleration business tab. Timeline acceleration business. If we sit back and let them take that on their own pace, you're an order taker. You're not actually selling, right? Selling is moving people along without obviously being pushy or manipulative, but it is moving people along timeline acceleration business.
Yep.
And we accelerate when we have less, what's the word?
Friction.
You got it. You got it. So here's another term we could say that we're all very familiar with. How can you, and this is what we're going to help you explore today through our comments, how can you flatten the curve, y'all know that term, of the squiggly line of the home buyer journey that's all over the place? How do you accelerate that and flatten the curve? I think you do it by reducing friction, right? So I'm going to toss over to Matt and let Matt talk about what you're seeing out there.
Yep.
What is our biggest obstacle right now? I know you've got a big obstacle to the way we all might be thinking.
Absolutely.
That's keeping us from being effective.
Yeah, and friction's the key term here, right? Like reducing the amount of friction possible and not being complacent in where we are. My quick intro story to all of this is, so here, this is my Apple Watch. And so I've had an Apple Watch since the day Apple Watches came out. And this is the Series 5 Apple Watch. And all I found really came to the conclusion is all I really use it for is fitness tracking, right? Like it's a really great all-around watch. It does a lot of things really, really well, but it lacks in fitness tracking. And that's really, I really wanted to get better. I'd been complacent with how this worked, and I wanted to get better. And so I was like, are there some better options out there? And so I put a face Google request out there, and had several people chiming in, get this. So I had a couple people tell me, you got to get the Suunto 7. I had a couple of people, Kevin, one of them said, you got to get the Garmin Fenix 6. And I'm like, okay. So I'll go to Best Buy. Best Buy has 0 on display. They won't let me look at anything. Friction. So I left. I went online and I bought both of them and had them both sent to my house. I'm like, I'll just test them both. And, the Suunto comes first, and I get it all set up. I'm like, oh, this looks really slick. It's really nice. I go to put it on. I start downloading the apps, plural. 3 apps to make this thing work. Put it back in the box, send it back. Like, I was done. 3 apps, no thank you. Garmin shows up a few days later, and I'm like, holy moly, this thing is on steroids, right? So I've had it for a couple days. Like, it tracks anything you want to track. It's nuts. But complacency, finding something that's better, and that friction of the buying process, right? The buying process. And you talked about what that buyer journey looks like. My buyer journey started with putting out a request on Facebook for people that I know for recommendations of a place to start. Then it went to YouTube, where I'm watching people do product demos. I'm watching 47 different people. I mean, we're talking about like a $500 or $600 item that you've got hours invested in, and the friction comes into place, and you immediately start making decisions about what you're not going to do or not going to keep because friction inserts itself, right?
True.
And so when the theme of today is evaluating what that friction looks like. And I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to read you guys. This took me all of maybe 30 seconds to find these. So these are a couple headlines. So new home sales jump 13.8% in June. Next one, U.S. new home sales shine in June. Business activity picks up. Here's another one. Existing home sales surge nearly 21% in June, the highest monthly gain on record. We're going to come back to that one in a minute.
Are you looking for new shoes too, Matt?
No, I'm not at all, actually. It's a really bad ad.
Those fitness watches might have gotten you targeted for
Those are some
fitness
hiking shoes right there.
Right?
That's right. In-market advertising at its best.
Yes.
But what we're seeing here, all we've heard is just bang, bang. It's going gangbusters. Everyone's saying, in the chat, everything's way up. Mostly everybody's saying it's way up. One of the things that we want to keep an eye on is that website data that we track is really a leading indicator. It's not what we're seeing today. right? So what the walk-in traffic that you're experiencing now is really the byproduct of 30, 45, 60 days ago, right?
Yes.
And so you're still feeling that that huge upswing in walk-in traffic today that was 30 to 60 days old. And so what has happened, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but what has happened to make our industry, new homes specifically, skyrocket the way that it has? And so really what it is it's been interest rates at an all-time low. People have been stuck in their homes. They've realized everything that they hate. And then an already low level of inventory has been further suppressed because people don't want other strangers trampling through their homes, right? The whole COVID, right? They don't want that. So we have to understand that we as an industry are plan B. We have 10% of the market across the nation. Nationwide, we're about 10% of all the real estate transactions. So we're always plan B. They haven't had an option for a while. Their plan A hasn't really been out there. So they've diverted to plan B. And we've been the benefactors of huge surge in activity and purchases. Now, what we can't do is get complacent with what we have, right? What we've been getting. And one of the things that you may have heard me say this before, but I call it GMS. Don't get GMS, good market syndrome. We've got to make sure that we're not falling trap to, well, everything we're selling, so let's not rock the boat. Well, everything's working, not what you're doing. It's pretty much everything is working. And this is where bad habits form. So a couple of things that we have to do, because I'm going to show you why in the data in just a second on this screen. So a couple of things that we have to do is we have to identify some things that we want to test out. This is the best time to test new things, right? Because everything is working, even the new things are going to work, but you can match that up with what you're already doing and have a better understanding of what you want to implement as you go and what you want to adjust, right? And so while we're doing that, we've got to identify what those buyer friction, the watch purchase process, what the buyer friction areas are within our company. Where is it hard to do business with us? And this is going to be something that's really hard for us to do right now because we are so busy. And so we have to identify what these friction pieces are. So when we start coming back down into normalcy, right? Like, because where we've been is not normal levels of indicated, right? Like it's record high of everything. So we've got to identify what those friction areas are. And then we have to identify some areas where we can, to be able to do that, how we can free up some of that bandwidth, right? So is it automating some of your follow-up protocols that you wouldn't automate in the past, right? Maybe it's from lower converting sources. Maybe Dave's going to talk about stuff like that in a little bit, right? So maybe it's freeing up our team's time by automating some things of lower converting sources or things like that, that is going to free up some of that bandwidth so we can identify and fix what we have, what the issues are that are being right now just completely swept under the rug, right? Because here's what we're seeing. Everyone is saying we're way up traffic-wise, but the reality of it is we're actually starting to see, like Meredith alluded to earlier, was a little bit of a couple clicks down, right? And so what you're looking at is the light blue line is 2019 and the dark blue line is this year currently. Obviously, we can see we're way up over last year. But what we're looking at here, this data goes all the way back to January, and you can start to see how this is clipping along. And you can see the huge peaks that we've seen, but then you're looking at, this is where we are today, right? So this is on a day-to-day basis. These are by the day numbers. And so this is one of the things that we're starting to see, because as we get back into this article, existing home sales surge nearly 21%. What does that mean? That means that inventory is coming back on the market and we can't just be present. So inventory levels are going to come up. We're still going to be undersupplied, but inventory levels are going to start to come up, which give people more options. So we've got to make sure that we're out there on top of what our friction areas are now and identifying what those problems are. Lastly, the other graph was total website traffic. This is organic search only, so no paid ads. So this is pure buyer intent. In my opinion, this is
Yes.
pure buyer intent. This is people purely specifically searching for new homes in, right? New homes for sale in. Those
Yes.
type of keywords. And you can see the light green line here is the trend line. Now, again, we're way up. We're still up over even the beginning of the year. But as you can see, we're still, we're a little click down from where we were at our peak. Like Meredith said, we've got new distractions. We've got a big a big question mark in the middle of 2020 of where we're at. And this is what we have to keep in front of ourselves is we can't let sales solve all our problems, because that's what is when sales are happening, there are no problems. And this is the perfect time to identify where we need to focus.
Now, I love that quote. Kerry, you gotta keep.
I know it. I'm like,
Kerry, you gotta put that quote on that back wall where over your one shoulder that doesn't have any pictures yet.
Yeah.
I think you need a big sign that says "Sales does not solve all problems." I like that. I like that.
You mean like at 11 o'clock at night? No.
Yeah, I know, right? So I like what I'm seeing in the chat, you guys, because I see you putting thinking out loud, processing this information, talking about friction points that you know exist already, preferred lender discussion, design studio process. Yes, as somebody that built a new construction home relatively recently, design studio process and pricing. Big pain point. Delivery dates. Thank you. So this is where, and I'm pretty sure, Kerry, this is an exercise you do with folks where you know, today it would be a virtual whiteboard, but you get, or the flip chart out and you map out their whole process begin to end and kind of find those points, right? I think that's something you do.
Exactly. And I think that what you're all talking about, and I know that you'll get to that, Dave, is it's because you're the data guy, is that you will find, or you need to find, where is your personal friction point. We know where yours is, Meredith. You've shared it with us. But every company has one, and they're not all the same. That's what's interesting. Like, where are you using them? Your friction point's different.
That's right. So, see, just to give you all a couple of ideas, just even thinking outside our industry for a second, Panera Bread. A couple of years back, if you remember, Panera Bread did a big initiative to put the self-serve order kiosks in touchscreens in every location. And, you know, I know some of us hate those things and we want to talk to a person, and that's fine. But a lot of people will walk right up. They get the same sandwich every time. They know exactly what they want, and they like having self-service. And when I read a whole article from the chief marketing officer, the CMO, about Panera Bread and why they rolled those out. And it wasn't because they were trying to be cool or hip or whatever. It was because they figured out that the main friction point with Panera Bread is the ordering process at noon when it's packed in there. Now, that is not a current reality, but if you remember back to the good old days when you would go to Panera Bread, if you didn't get there before 11:30 or wait to go until 1 p.m., you would be 25 deep in a line. It was brutal. There's never enough parking, and there's always a really long line to order. And they said, we figured out that the main point of dissatisfaction was how congested the ordering process was in our cafes. They call them cafes. And so that's why they implemented it. Smart. See, that's what I'm talking about. You know what? And it doesn't have to be some big technology investment. It may be just a small thing that you do that eliminates a point of congestion, confusion, disillusionment, frustration. Kerry?
It's tracking, measuring, and managing, right, guys? It was the line. It's just like, Matt, let's do Disney for a second. Yep. The lines at Disney answered with a fast pass.
Yep.
There you go.
So it's that they track, they measure, and they manage.
Do you guys, you probably were all old enough to remember years and years ago when CarMax came out. Do you remember? Yeah. And what did CarMax do? They eliminated the friction pain point of the haggling, of people who hated to go to a dealership and argue. Some of us live for these moments, and others of us would rather die first, right? I'm like, game on, baby, let's go. But you know, that's not everybody's thing. So we know businesses, Uber, we know these case studies that actually built an entire business model on eliminating some pain point, right? Like, who wants to take a cab? Nobody.
Yeah.
We all do an Uber in a stranger's car. It's bizarre, but we do it. You know, not so much lately, but we do.
Right.
So, okay. So Kerry really teed up the next segment really well then, because there was really nobody better to talk to us about the measure of the manage and measure. What was that, Kerry? What was it?
Track, manage, measure.
Track, manage, measure. There's nobody better to help us measure than Dave Betcher at ECI Lasso. Dave's always got his pulse on all the numbers, and Angela, of course. Now, Angela is with us. She's just working behind the scenes today.
The other thing that I tend to have a pretty good pulse on. Yep.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to say Angela is with us also. She's just behind the scenes, so we want to show her love too. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's
so
always
ahead,
love.
Dave. Yeah. What you got?
You know, I was just going to say, you know, another thing that I tend to have a pretty good pulse on, because I speak to so many, is agents, right? New home sales agents. And just really starting to, you know, I think more so now since COVID has come about, that there's been a real recognition. Now, we've been talking the same story for how many years now, you guys? We've been talking the same story for 15 years.
I know.
But I think there has been a real recognition about, okay, I have to actually follow up with people in order for them to, you know, buy a home from me. It's quite, and you know, you talk about friction points, and even when you're talking on Zillow, for example, Meredith, a great example. You know, when you're searching for a new home compared to a used home, what the experience is like for the consumer. And a Zillow lead is a very expensive lead for any home builder, right? I mean, the cost of a Zillow lead or a BDX lead, it's really expensive. But when you look at the flip results and just seeing what the, you know, start to talk a little bit about, you know, data, and start to talk about conversion rates and those kinds of things, and really starting to understand that the new home sales agent hasn't really necessarily grasped everything that we need them to grasp with regards to how consumers are necessarily shopping now. And I'm just going to show you a couple of stats, and these are pretty standard. I've aggregated some data, just like you guys have, and I just want to show you a couple of stats that really show the disassociation between what marketing is doing many times, and then what the end result is for the consumer when the salespeople get a hold of this. So what am I trying to say here? And I'm not blaming salespeople by any means, but I think there's a realization that needs to come about, and there needs to be some accountability as well, that understanding that the consumer, especially more so now than ever, is shopping online. They are engaging online, they are registering online, but they're not being communicated with. And this has not necessarily changed. In fact, I would suggest that it's gotten worse over the last 6 months than it's gotten better. So, you know, looking at that friction point, Meredith, we were talking about how wonderful it is for the consumer when they're shopping for a used home on Zillow, that they will go and they'll do a, you know, they'll do their own personal tour. They will, you know, when they say contact me, there's a resale agent there contacting them right away. They get pre-qualified right away. That is fantastic. But the real difference is that when people are shopping for a new home, so when they go to Zillow and they, you know, they go to buy and they're looking for new construction and they come to this page right here, what happens is when they come here and they say contact agent, this typically does not have the same experience for the for the consumer, because this typically goes to an on-site agent. And I just want to show you a couple of fun little stats here really quick. And really what's happening with all of these Zillow leads that come in is they typically get, I will say, either ignored from the builder, or there isn't a defined sales process for each of these types of leads. So when we look at these types of numbers, and I'm not going to share who this builder is, I've got Best Builder up here, but at the same time, this is indicative across the US in every single market that the conversion rates are just so low from the online lead sources. I'm going to talk about that just for a second. But if you haven't done so yet, just let us help you understand what your conversion rates really are, and looking at the Zillow lead and then how it converts, or looking at the BDX leads. And I'm not certainly picking on those sources at all, because they're a terrific lead source. It's just that we haven't necessarily understood the proper mechanism to follow up, and understanding that these types of leads are a little bit further up in the funnel, that we have to do things a little bit differently with this type of lead compared to somebody who is either walking in and meet us in person. And over the last couple of months, that walk-in lead has been done with an appointment. So the conversion rates are typically very high because people have set appointments. They're calling us for appointments, right? We're not trying to schedule with them. They're calling us, and we see these super high conversion rates. I was on with the builder this morning. Their conversion rates for walk-in traffic over the last 3 months has been over 60%. 60% conversion rates for walk-in leads. But that means that they're doing by appointment only, and the people that are setting appointments are converting really high. In comparison, what we're also seeing are the lead source conversions for online has gotten exceptionally low. So looking at these types of numbers and understanding the majority of our customers are shopping online now and they're registering online, and they're registering through all of those third-party sources. They're registering on our website as well. The majority of our databases are now online leads, but we don't have a defined mechanism to follow up with them. We're still relying on our salespeople to do things the way that they have always done them, without really understanding that we can automate some of our processes. We can say for the third-party leads, the Facebook leads, for example, prime indicator, people who are a little bit further out in the funnel, we don't ignore them. We understand there's value in every lead that we generate. We understand there's cost in every single lead, but we also understand that there may be a little bit longer process. So incorporating some automation within our follow-up and taking the heat off of the salespeople, quite honestly, to say you don't have to, actively engage for 60 days across 9 points of contact that are all personal. Let the people who want to be sold to right now, let your sales agents do what they do best and sell to them. And let the outliers, let your tools work their magic for them until people are ready to convert over. So you look at this,
Dave, hey Dave.
Yeah, go ahead, Meredith.
Let me jump in for just a second here, because this is where it's important, because what we're all saying, it's not that this one traffic source is a bad traffic source. It's a perfectly good traffic source. We have clients that convert those at a really good percentage, but it is something they have worked on, they've put effort into, they have a process, to Matt's point about processes, and steps, they have those things in place. So before sorry to interrupt there for a second, but just before you keep going, one thing that I bet people would kind of be interested in know, and maybe you're going to cover this, is if people are doing it right, what are some ballpark conversion rates they could expect?
Yeah, great question, Meredith.
Because there are good numbers out there that you could be seeing. Yeah.
Oh, and I do see a lot of them. It just so happens right now that the number of leads that we have compared to the amount of homes that we have to sell. So sometimes those numbers can be skewed because we don't have the inventory to match the amount of lead traffic that we're getting.
If only we had a crystal ball a year ago to know we needed to have so much on the ground right now, right, Matt?
But that being said, and all of us here in this panel were in the market in 2005, 2006, 2007, right? Where we had the exact same issue on hand, is that we didn't have the inventory to match the amount of lead traffic that we were having. When things slowed down a little bit, because we hadn't had the foresight, we want to talk about crystal ball, here's a crystal ball. If we continue to communicate with prospects on an ongoing basis, we continue to build a relationship with them. So what I suggest is, even if we don't have the inventory to sell you a new home today, that doesn't mean that you won't be a lifetime buyer. And by continuing the relationship, it may be 3 or 4 years, but continuing the relationship with me will encourage me to look at you first before I would ever buy a home from anybody else. And that's really what I'm trying to get here, is that there's such a lack of responsiveness still occurring today. And what that does is it turns off buyers. It turns off buyers a lot because they are used to getting immediate responses. So when we don't respond, or when we respond once and then disappear, it's the disappearing that is really unfortunate, because lead costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of effort to get somebody on the website. We know that people convert at a 1% level on your website, from a lead that goes to your site, from a visitor on your site to convert to an actual lead. It's less than 1%. So we really have to harness that, but it takes time to build that relationship, just like we do with our friends and you know, our relationships that we've got with everybody. It takes time to develop, and we have to kind of maintain that. And those are some of the things. So let's just toss up some numbers that look good. Okay.
Yeah.
I love to see a 20% lead conversion on a walk-in. That is my favorite number. Now, when I'm seeing higher than that, 20%, 1 in 5 that walk through that front door that haven't registered online before.
Yeah.
Now for you builders that have an OSC, that number for an online lead that converts to a appointment, I like to see that number at about 25%. I love to see those online leads that have been scheduled an appointment that then end up purchasing at home. So 1 in 4 people register online, get sent an appointment to go see a model. I like that conversion rate to be about 25%. So that online conversion typically is in that, you know, 15 to 20% range as well. If we can get that to 5%, I am absolutely thrilled. But I like to see a little bit higher number, and really emphasizing the value of the appointment rather than just, here's some conversation, but setting the appointment. And I just don't see it that often anymore with so many builder clients. I just see that they're so reliant on that walk-in traffic without valuing that online lead, converting them to an appointment, and that appointment then converting to a to a sale. So those are the kinds of numbers that I like to see.
You know, it's been interesting with some states being wide open for walk-in, you know, whatever. And then other states being very restrictive with their quarantine and social distancing. We've really gotten this amazing experiment that none of us ever want to do again, but we have gotten this amazing experiment of what does it look like to just, okay, anybody can come to a model home anytime, all walk in, versus we have to go by appointment only model. And so far, hands down, the by appointment only model has been outselling our typical just show up whenever you want model, hands down. I'd be curious to see, Sophia, okay, you guys saying the same? Yes, you need an OSC.
You know what? All of these chats are so relevant. Read these chats, you guys, because it just resonates so
I know
so
it
high,
is.
right?
Mandy's got a great point. It is a quality versus quantity issue.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if one of our major business lessons out of this whole episode will be more of an appointment model. I mean, in my mind, Matt, it kind of sets a more, I don't know, I want to say exclusive. That's a little wrong. But it's kind of a higher caliber sounding type thing to be like by appointment, right?
Absolutely.
I mean,
well, and the reality of it is,
like
if a buyer wants to see an existing home on the market, they don't just show up at somebody's house and knock on the door.
ding dong.
I mean, they're used to it, right? It's right here for us. They're already used to everything being online. They're already used to setting an appointment to, you know, they're used to all of that. It's us catching up.
I know. And so really, Kerry, that brings us to you. You've been so patient with all of our talking heads all this time. But, you know, then we've got to really, you know, you're always our people person.
Right.
And focusing on our people and bringing it back to that, because we can track, you said, and me and Matt did that. And then Dave's helped us measure, but now we need to manage the friction.
Yeah.
And that's you, baby.
So y'all know that I think retail, right? Retail thinks months ahead, a year ahead. That's how I wire sales teams. So I'm kind of to help you not to be pre-friction failure, PFF, if you will.
Oh, I like it.
You don't feel the friction after the calendar turns, right?
Right.
So it's what are those things? So I'm going to share my screen. And Angela, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't.
If it doesn't, you will
We
figure
can walk
it out.
you through that. No problem.
No problem. Okay.
You have it?
We see it, baby.
What the F?
Don't see it. Don't.
I didn't, Matt.
I
don't
know you.
I'm good. But so this follows up exactly what Dave said, is that if you don't want to feel the friction of picking up on calls to people in their different buckets today and tomorrow, then manage it right now. So everybody's in a bucket. The first bucket that you have to manage is your online leads, because they are your quicker, faster, better. You have to get to them. They're not waiting. So that bucket is like right now. Now you go down to the people that they came in 2020, so this year, and they either visited or they inquired or they did something, but they haven't bought, so they're living in your CRM. So that's a bucket. So this is really about time management, is that you have to figure out that you're touching and filling all your buckets. Now you've got 2019, who that's not that long ago, who they visited and they're living in your CRM. And if you don't want to have to call them cold, have not given them a touch point, so that all of a sudden you're like, wow, that didn't feel very good, which is friction, then you need to attend to that bucket now. Now you've got 2020 you sold and they're not under construction yet. We sell these people and then we just leave them. And based on where you are in your processes, or in, are you essential? Are you not essential? Are you phase 1? Or you phase 1.8? These people are sitting and they're going, they got my money and they just forgot about me. So you've got all of that. I'm going to do your personal bucket last. But what I want you to know, to be able to keep everything on an even keel, you've got to say, I'm going to fill these buckets. And what are you going to fill them with? Embedded touch points. So your CRM and automation, that whether you're A, B, or C, whatever you want to call them, that you are figuring out a touch point to these people that you've put into their individual buckets, so that when you do need them, because you're busy right now, they're warmed up. They're like, I've been getting your things, you know, thank you. I'm glad you didn't forget about me. You know, it's like, you're the only one. We went to 10 models and you're the only person that called us back or sent us something. So it's, you have to figure out when you're putting things into your CRM. And here's where I cut no slack to anybody. And this is where Meredith knows I was like a flipping tornado last week, wasn't I?
Yes.
Angela, in there, you'll listen to me. They're like, whoa, Kerry's on a firing spree. I really wasn't firing people, but I was really calling people out to understand that you are going to need these realtors. You are going to need these buckets. So you cannot afford the luxury of being too busy right now, because you're going to put yourself out of business come 2021 if you do. So to not feel the friction with people not choosing to work with you later, you need to put touch points in your buckets. And then the last one is your personal bucket. This is what, when you get too busy, you just all of a sudden forget about you. So it's funny, Meredith, in the last, you know, I'm doing how many Zoom sales meetings a week? Lord, I don't know. And I love them.
I don't know anymore.
So I ask my Brady Bunch screen, like, what makes you happy? Crickets. People don't even know what to go do or what to read or anything to make them happy. So people, get your own bucket, know what you need to do to fill it. And when you feel like my bucket's a little empty, go do one of those things. Go make that happen. You know, I will tell you that all of this new world has brought a new bucket, and it's a Meredith Carey Angela bucket. And when one of us are like, man, I'm sucking for wind, I just want to go hurt somebody or whatever, one calls the other one, and you either have, everyone had fun with my tornado last week of these two. You guys would have died if you would have heard the memes and the things they were sending me. I'm like, okay, I'm good. All your jobs are good, but please tend to your buckets. If you don't want friction later, take care of it today. That's what I got to say.
Yeah, because I'll tell you what, and if you need someone to help, just text me, and then I'll start texting you ridiculous gifts, and they help, right, Kerry? My gifts. I have a skill at finding just the right gift to text for the moment.
Just wait till you get your next one.
I know, right? So, all right. So yeah, I think that's, you're spot on. It's tending to all this, it's nurturing it, it's managing it, and it's hard when you're just super busy. But to Matt's point, that good market syndrome, you know, that is a real thing. Those of us that lived through 06, 7, 8, 12, it is a real thing. And it caused some builders who are no longer with us, meaning out of business, it caused them to make some really poor decisions of not taking care of their customers and taking kind of advantage of the moment. And Dave, you were talking about earlier during our pre-call, the lines of people lining up of, you know, those days when it got out of hand, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can't have that. We can't have that. So I think that's good. All right.
Yeah,
so,
just to that point, Meredith, and I'll just kind of share that story. I had a builder yesterday contact me about, they're really worried about the amount of leads that they have in their database and the amount of homes that they have to sell. And they've got a pre-sale community that they're selling, and they're really afraid of having too many people line up, because that's the response that they have been, had right now. And, you know, they're also having a concern about when they send out an email, they get so much traffic back to their website that it tends to crash their website, which is unheard of now. But it's just one of those scenarios. And you think, wow, is that, you've got, you know, great marketing and great sales. Everybody likes to think about that, but it's really, you've got a great market that you're currently selling in. And those relationships need to be, you know, nurtured, like I say, and it doesn't matter what type of market you're in. As to Kerry's point, I mean, it's what are the touch points that you need to have in place, regardless of what your market is doing.
Yeah. So I want you, as you are thinking through what we're talking about today, I want you to get your wheels turning on what process, as Matt brought up, should we implement right now, even though we're all busy and we're losing it. Because frankly, right now, you could afford to hire somebody and put them on that process, where there's been many years where we couldn't put staff resources behind stuff, right? So what process is it? Is it the design center? Is it financing? Is it sales? Is it marketing? What is it? Do you need a process / staff resource towards something? Do you
let me jump on that real quick?
Yeah, please.
If someone is thinking, we don't know, if there's anybody that's on right now going, I'm not sure what that is for us. And don't go back and hurricane your team and go, somewhere we've got a friction point and we need to figure it out because these guys all told me that we do. Number one, read your surveys that you get. If you don't survey, and then figure out what your customers are telling you is your friction point. Where was it uncomfortable for someone? Listen to your customer. They are going to tell you, and when it's the same, not a one-off, but all of a sudden it's like the design studio a few times or whatever it is, you can find, your people tell you the story.
But we don't listen. Yeah, Matt.
Secret shop, right? Send out some secret shops right now. Let that lead start. Let that person start online and follow the process all the way through. That will help find your friction process. And then take one person, find a shop company that'll do this. Take one person and actually have that shopper build a house all the way through the entire process. Construction, pre-cons, the whole 9 yards. Get it all on video. right? That's going to be a spec home that you're going to build anyway. And at the end of the deal, you put the house on the market and sell it. That shopper was the buyer for that house. You're going to capture the whole process on recording, and you're going to see what's really happening every single day across every single department.
Wow.
And that's powerful. Another way, your online reviews, likely, you get your closing surveys, but you also get those pesky online reviews. You get your social media mentions and comments. All of that is feedback on your friction. But we want to ignore it or stick our head in the sand or pretend like it doesn't exist or whatever it is we do, and it's not to your benefit. So that's one. Maybe it's a process. And what Dave really highlighted today was maybe it's technology that needs to get implemented and then properly train and develop our people on the use of that technology. And
100%,
that
Meredith.
could be the friction, like Panera implementing the self-service kiosks. It could be that needs to happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
And then, of course, last but not least, our people. And our people need motivation, empowerment, training, knowledge. Our people need all of those things to keep them running.
Right.
Because they get worn out and bogged down too.
Human.
Yeah, they're human. Yeah. So I'm gonna stop you guys' video. So say goodbye. Don't everybody leave. I've got a segment I'm gonna do here. All right. Bye, Dave. Bye. You're back.
See you guys.
Bye. See ya. All right. Don't forget to mute, you guys, or we will still hear you even though we don't see you. Okay. So this last segment, what I want to do is just take it down now to us individually. And this idea of this friction and what it really means to you personally. Okay. So as I told you, I've started this Peloton journey and it's not my strong suit. I am really struggling with it, but I'm also loving it. I'm also enjoying it. And you don't have to be a Peloton person or even like it. I'm sure you've started some kind of journey in the past of improving yourself, either physically, mentally, health, weight, whatever. And you know what I'm talking about. It's hard at first, right? And this idea of it's when we rub up against change that creates friction. And that is what this whole coronavirus has done, is it has taken us and asked us to rethink daily routines, to rethink how we live our whole life, our whole lifestyle, and it creates friction for us. And so the question for you is, how do you handle that? And I'll be honest with you, the last couple of weeks, I've not been handling it well. I've not. I've been fighting it. I've been fighting against it so hard, not wanting to let go of certain ideas of how things should be and accept new realities of how things are. And as I've been riding this bike, it's so good for you always to get exercise and endorphins. And of course, the coaches are very motivational and the playlists are great. And so it does a lot for you mentally. And it fills up your bucket, to Kerry's point. And so as that bucket begins to get filled up, you begin to be able to think about things differently. It's like, this bike is killing me. I mean, I've literally sat on ice packs for almost 2 weeks. I'm not today, which is a huge improvement. But at the same time, I know it's good for me. It's that painful but good kind of a thing. Like, I know it's good for me. And I just want you to think about when you have the opportunity to go through friction in your life, do you embrace it? But it's more than just embracing it. It's more than that. Because we say we do, but then we're still holding on to old ideas. We're still waiting for that other thing to happen. We're still hoping that person in our life is going to change. And I'm going to tell you what, right now, they're never going to change, people. We're still hoping, we haven't really let it go. But even more, what I've discovered through this process of this bike is it's not even just embracing or letting go of what is causing the friction. It is the leaning into it. Are you leaning in to the friction you're experiencing? Because the moment you lean in it and you really go, okay, let's go. I'm going to stop avoiding you. I'm going to stop pretending you don't exist. I'm going to face you head on, and I'm going to deal with this. The moment that you do that, that's the moment the friction gets better. So to give you exactly what happened is, yeah, I've been having this horrible pain, and I went and bought a cushioned bike seat cover. I went and bought cushioned shorts. I did all of these other things, but I didn't really deal with it. And dealing with it meant figuring out the settings, because everything I Googled said, if you're experiencing pain, your settings are wrong. If you're experiencing pain, your settings are wrong. But I didn't want to take the time. So Saturday, I finally took a couple of hours, watched a bunch of videos. I reached out for help to some of my expert Peloton friends. I texted them and said, this is what's happening. They gave me advice. I leaned into it to actually fix it. A lot of times when you're dealing with something, you try to solve it by doing all the things around the edges of it, but not actually put the time and put the work in to fix it. Does that make sense? There is a difference. So it's one thing to spend 5 hours Googling gel bike seat covers, which I literally did. It's another thing to get on the bike, figure out what your settings are, and ride the bike. All right? A lot of times we work around the problem instead of working on it to solve it. So what I've come to out of this journey of this bike is that friction between us and our customers, if we're hard to do business with, bad. Friction for us personally, this is where the growth happens every single time without fail. And if you can find a way to let go of old ideas and expectations, embrace new realities, but take it a step further, lean into the friction, you'll have your best ride yet. And every ride after that will get better and better and better and better. So I hope that that helps you, because all of you here are going through different friction points in your life. It may not even be work. It may be personal. It may be a whole host of things, but you are not alone. We are all in this together. We are the virtual builder town hall family, and we are here to support each other and grow in our industry together. So a big, huge shout outs today to Angela McKay, ECI Lasso, who's behind the scenes making everything run seamlessly. We didn't see her today, but she was so here. Big thank you to Matt Riley of Group 2 Advertising. They can help you with all of your marketing and advertising needs. Kerry Mulcrone of Kerry & Co., who can help you with your sales training and coaching. And of course, the one and only DB, Dave Betcher of ECI Lasso, who can help you improve your lead management and your online sales counselor coaching and services. So that's it. That's today. I'm telling you guys, lean into the friction. It's good for you. See ya. Have a great week. I will see you next month. Bye.